Right, Pidgeotto.
Pidgeotto.
In my opinion, probably the most popular of this line because
Yeah,
Ash had one.
yeah. Like I Pidgeotto as a Pokemon to battle with is a very middle evolution issue. It's going to be the same as all the others. Like I've only got it because I want the final evolution or I want it in my decks. I do not have it because I actively want it. Like no one's like, yeah, I want a Pidgeotto. You're like, I'm getting a Pidgeotto to check it off my decks or because I want a Pidgeot. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Now for um I think Pidgeotto's popularity is because Ash had one. And Ash's Pidgeotto stayed a Pidgeotto the whole time. It was a Pidgeotto when he caught it
Mm.
because he failed at the Pidgey. And it was it stayed a Pidgeotto for the entire series and then was only a Pidgeot for like one episode before he abandoned it.
Yeah.
So when you think about Ash's, say, Charizard, you think, oh, Ash had a Charmander, then a Charmeleon, then a Charizard. But when you think about Ash's Pidgeotto, Ash just had a Pidgeotto,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. And
So,
I think it goes to speak to how popular that Pidgeotto is as well, because he abandons that. He abandons a whole bunch of Pokemon, and I feel like there's a much more of a groundswell of where was Pidgeot for, when it was like building up to the last episodes. There was much more of a okay, we want
yeah.
to see Pidgeot again, um, versus we want to see his Primeape again, which is
Yeah.
there's a length of time difference between the two, but between him getting rid of the two, but the people who were like, oh, we want to see his Primeape again, was minuscule in comparison to we want to see his Pidgeot. We need Pidgeot. We need Butterfree. We need to see them two before he hangs it up.
Yeah. I definitely see that.
I think
Um,
I think Pidgeotto is. I mean, we'll probably go into it a little bit more on the Pidgeot episode. Um, Again, is probably part of that, the frustrations that people have with Ash, in that you know if he'd have kept that Pidgeot, his team would have been much more powerful. And him abandoning it. It was
true.
probably the beginning of
True,
him
but it wasn't
abandoning.
abandoned. It chose to leave. Like this is the thing. I think, and again, we'll finish this talking in the Pidgeot episode. But like Ash knows when he's not right for a Pokemon, and I think that's one of the more moving and interesting parts of Ash as a trainer. Can
Uh,
you even hear me?
yes, I can hear you. I was just.
Okay, good, because my
Okay.
thing had frozen that whole time, and I had no idea if I was coming through.
Yes, you're right.
Um,
Your image has been freezing a little bit, but the audio's been coming through fine.
okay,
Uh,
good. Yeah, I think the way that Ash's Pokemon leave, they leave in a respectful way on their terms. And I think that's what's important about the way that Ash chooses to let his Pokemon go on to the next stage of their development with someone better suited to them or not
mm,
or whatever. But like, I think I think especially in the early episodes and the later episodes, actually, all of the episodes of Pokemon that require that have an abandoned Pokemon, all the abandoned Pokemon miss their trainer, but Ash's Pokemon miss their trainer but choose to leave.
mm.
Like they're not abandoned. And I think it would be nice for them to go back and see Pidgeot and see how well it's looking after all of its adopted babies.
Yeah. I think as well that there's probably an element of like, again, most trainers probably had a Pidgeot and know how decent it is. So I think
Yeah.
there was a certain element of them wanting to kind of um, will Pidgeotto into evolving in order to kind of help Ash out a little bit. But I mean, I like Pidgeotto's like character. I feel like in his early team, everyone's got their kind of like role, and I feel like
Yep.
Pidgeotto's the kind of probably the strongest Pokemon that he's got early on in terms, before
Yes.
Charizard. But like
Yes.
they're not a dick about it like Charizard.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I think Pidgeotto comes in handy as well, having a Pokemon that can fly, having a Pokemon that can like go ahead and scout things and fly back quickly. That's the thing that it does a lot.
Mm.
Um, its Whirlwind comes in handy a few times. Like I remember it being a very useful Pokemon, even if it's not always used in battle.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm I feel like he didn't use it against Erica, and I feel like that was a thing I thought was weird because he
He
sent,
he don't understand.
yeah,
He don't understand the typing and stuff, does he?
he doesn't. He doesn't. He used it against Misty, didn't he? At one point.
Um, well, he wanted to, but Pikachu didn't want to. Didn't want to.
Yeah, no, Pikachu didn't want to fight, so he used Butterfree and Pidgeotto because those are the Pokemon he had at the time.
I think so. Uh,
Yeah, and the star you fucked up.
well, if I remember correctly, they used the it's like um, the water types were going into the water to wash off like the sleep powders and stuff.
Yeah, off the Butterfree
Yeah. Um, so
and appear out of nowhere and chop.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
leap out of the water and yeah.
so I've been. I don't know about you, but I kind of pre-planned some of the stuff that we're going to do in these episodes,
All right.
and I've been wearing this hat intentionally, partly because I think it. I mean, I like a beret anyway, um, and I feel like the Generation 4 beret is a underrated Pokemon look. But I saw a meme in the run up to this episode, which is that everyone's got hair like Pidgeotto, and I unfortunately also do.
All right. Yeah, no, I see it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that that is like actually a thing of like um, everyone, everyone in 2023 seems to have hair that's like Pidgeotto.
I mean, I've seen that meme going around a little while. I think the whole like undercut pointy top has been a in fashion for quite some time. I don't think it's that new, but yeah.
Well,
I would appreciate seeing more people add the pink hair to it though. I think that would be very cool. Everyone doing their basic like fade, short back and sides, but with a fade and scruffy on top, but pink.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've had this type of hair for some time now, and I have been known to dye it in the past. And I feel like I will be dyeing my hair at some point in the future again because I've started to get greys, and it's oh, I hate it. I
Oh.
hate it so much. But the last time I had my hair like dyed, right, I was doing a day in a school. This was like before I'd done my like teacher training and all that kind of stuff, and um, I remember being in this classroom with my like blonde dyed on the top and like scraped back. And
Yeah.
this was the day that it put me off being in schools for ages. This because I remember like I was looking at this classroom, and then I looked away and then I looked back, and within that time, a child had started eating his tie, and had gotten all the way up to the knot, and I was like, what is this like utter feral child that I've been put in front of? Um, but anyway, what I'm like linking back to is I would like to have the more colourful hair, but
Mm.
I'm now in a position where I think it would the stuff I have to do in the daytime, at least for now until I get Comedy Lab up and running properly.
Yeah.
I feel like I've got to be more conservative with my hair choices. But when I'm running Comedy Lab full time, believe me, mate, I will go back to the pink. I will go back to the reds and the blues. When I'm not having to deal with children eating ties.
Yes,
Ridiculous.
that definitely sounds like a better place to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I've got that as a comparison now. In one hand, I've got, am I having to look at someone eating a tie? And if the answer's no, I know I'm doing better with my life.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Um, so yeah, so that was like that's like become a meme. Pidgeotto's like ruffled hair on the top has become a meme.
Little fuckboy hair.
Yeah, well, I mean that's very much me. That's why I took the beret on. But I seem to recall as well, right, when I had a Pidgeotto, um, like feeling like the back of its hair sprite looked a bit odd, like in the.
Yeah, I think a lot of Gen 1 sprites looked odd from the back.
Mm,
They were still figuring it out, I think.
yeah, like they just basically do. They look like they all just look like Justin Bieber from behind. Um,
Well,
oh, go on.
how much attention have you been paying to what Justin Bieber looks like from behind?
Wow, this it's an obsession at this point. Uh, I can't go to sleep without going right. I need to cuddle up to a pillow and imagine the back of Justin Bieber stroke a Pidgeotto's head. Um, so my question. Oh, this was something else I was going to mention. I should probably hold this off until the Pharaoh episode, right? But I feel like we're going to probably mention it in the next one in the Rattata Raticate episode. But
Yeah.
I I feel like a lot of second stage evolutions feel like a little bit disappointing, even when like the second stage is the final stage, um, and I wonder if Spearow would be like considered like a little bit better if there was like a third stage to it.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I do think that's possible because I feel like if it's got, I think the middle evolutions often feel incomplete, but then if it's only got a two-stage evolution, unless it puts off evolving until it's at a really high level, it can end up um like they kind of have to keep the stats a bit lower so that they can fight the middle evolutions comfortably.
Mm.
And I think that kind of factors into it. Like they're thinking a lot about stat matchups, rather than, is this second evolution really has it got the chops to go through it? And I think in the first generation, they noticed that because like Brock has an Onyx, and then people in the Elite Four have Onyxes as well. Like Bruno has an Onyx. I think it's Bruno in the first gen. Um, and it's like, well, that Onyx's base stats aren't going to change. So actually, having the first gym and one of the final boss battles you do have an Onyx means that if you've evolved the Pokemon that got that first Onyx, like you're going to stomp it so bad. Which is, I think, why obviously they introduced Steelix and things like that, and how Pokemon that don't evolve at all are like the ones I just don't want on my team.
Mm. Yeah, like even ones that I know are like objectively supposed to be good, like it's very rare
Yeah,
that I'll have a Snorlax on this, even though I know that they've added
yeah,
another one in there. Like I know they added Munchlax in there, but yeah, like for me, it's like if it's not a third stage evolution or a
don't want it.
legendary,
Yeah,
it's difficult to like justify having it on there.
yeah. Like the third stage evolutions and legendaries have the best stats. Simple as that.
It's like Pidgeotto, I know is gonna eventually evolve into a Pidgeot. Pharaoh is Pharaoh
It's
now.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also as you're going through the story, if you are conscious of filling up the Pokedex, you'll be like, oh, I've evolved my Spearow. I can put my Fearow away and have this slot to level up something else. If
Yeah.
you've evolved your Pidgey into a Pidgeotto, you've got to keep it with you a bit longer. And by the time it's evolved into a Pidgeot, you've got half your badges, and it's probably a staple of your team, whether you wanted it to be or not. Like, if you're just going to keep it until it evolves, you're keeping it for a longer time.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it easier to like slip into your team, even though you plan on dumping it, and then you're like, actually, this is now a higher level than the wild Pokemon I can catch around here. I'm actually better off keeping it with me.
Mm.
And I think that goes for like because it obviously it doesn't like I think that goes for Pidgeotto in particular because the other triple evolutions you catch at the same time as you catch Pidgey, Caterpie and Weedle, which are in their final evolutions by level 10, and then Nidoran, male and female, which evolve into Nidorino and Nidorina later
Mm.
than Pidgey evolves into Pidgeotto. But once they've evolved, you can just moonstone them straight into the final evolution. You
Yeah.
don't have to wait around. If you are just looking to fill up your Pokedex, you can do that as soon as possible.
Mm.
And then apart from that, if you exclude the kind of baby Pokemon and additional evolutions that were introduced in later games, there's not another free stage evolution for like a little while.
Mm.
Unless like I'm not counting Geodude because you have to trade Graveler,
Yeah.
and if you don't have friends, that's not an option.
Yeah.
But then yeah, the rest are all like, Zubat and Golbat, two stage. Um Jigglypuff, Wigglytuff, Clefairy, Clefable, Ekans, Arbok. They're all two stage that you meet at that point. Parasect, you get them in Mount Moon. Sandshrew, Slanslash, you meet at the same place as Ekans and Arbok.
Mm.
Mankey and Primeape, you get first. Like, it's a long time before you meet another free stage Pokemon.
Yeah.
Probably Abra, but even then, you've got to trade it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, at least early on they're very rare, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's really easy for Pidgeotto to fall into that place on your team because you've got to, if even if you just want to check it off in your decks, you've got to keep it on your team for longer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my point. I took forever to say it, but that's
Yeah.
my point.
So before we go into the Pokedex as well, I thought it's just popped in my head, but I've had it over the years. In my opinion, Pidgeotto should be the name of the final evolution.
All right.
Yeah, I think Pidgeotto, and then Pidgeot. It's for me that feels like an anticlimactic final evolution name.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it makes sense because it gets more streamlined
Okay,
in a way.
and
I don't know.
I think that's
I
a
don't
fair.
mind it. I'm not disagreeing necessarily, but I don't mind it.
Yeah. But yes, for me, as much as I've had a Pidgey and a Pidgeot and a Pidgeotto as my main, uh, I feel like this is probably the case for most people. Uh, I'd say probably 99% of people, if not 100% of people, when they think of Pidgeotto, they think of Ash's Pidgeotto rather than any Pidgeotto that they've spent time with.
So, very briefly going back to the point I was just making about how long it is before you meet another free stage evolution.
Mm.
I have just had a quick scroll through the Pokedex,
Yeah.
and every single three stage evolution, the second evolution is either a stone or a trade for the entire Pokedex up until Dratini.
Wow.
Dratini is the next Pokemon you can catch. So there are only in a game where you're not trading three Pokemon that you can level up into its final evolution for three stages, and that's your starter, assuming you only get one and don't trade in one of the other
Yeah.
two. Pidgey to Pidgeot, and then Dratini to Dragonite. All of the other three-stage evolutions in the game are a stone or a trade.
Wow.
And so that will be um, obviously Nidorino and Nidorina to Nidoqueen and Nidoking,
Yeah.
Gloom to Vileplume, Weeping Bell to Victory Bell, Kadabra trades to Alakazam, Machoke trades to Machamp,
Mm.
Graveler trades to Golem,
Yeah.
uh, Haunter trades to
Yeah.
Gengar, and that's all of the Pokemon that evolve twice. until you get true Tratini.
Wow.
Huh. I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was that rare
Yeah.
until I checked it because I was thinking about it and then I was like, actually, I want to check this because I sort of assume most Pokemon evolve via leveling up, but only once. And then you've got to do something weird,
Wow.
with the exception of Pidgeotto and Dragonair, and you start a middle evolution.
Well, I mean, that's probably another reason why, like what you say, that Pidgey ends up probably falling into people's teams. You know, because you can get that third stage relatively easy.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have to trade anything, you don't have to find a stone.
Yeah.
And in the first generation, that can be tricky.
Yeah. And pre-internet as well. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I almost feel like I'm cheating a little bit, but sometimes I'll like have a Pokemon with me for a while, and I'll be like, look, I need to either work out how to evolve this or just bin it off.
yeah,
And then end
yeah,
up doing
I
some
get that.
googling.
So here is the thing. I am not afraid to Google how to evolve a Pokemon. And I should tell you for why. The reason is when I was a kid, obviously I didn't have the internet, but what I did have was one of my relatives bought me for Christmas a little book called the Handheld Pokedex. And it was a book maybe about the size of a DVD case. It wasn't very thick. And what it had a little summary at the beginning that was like Professor Oak saying, "Welcome to the world of Pokemon."
Yeah.
And then what it had was just one page for every Pokemon where it told you, it had a picture of them, their name, where to find it, how they evolved, and their special moves. So literally kind of like a Pokedex, but with all that additional information. So I actually never needed to figure out how Pokemon evolved. I already had that information because I read that book a lot
Mm.
without like I carried that book around with me even when I wasn't playing the Pokemon games. I was a weird obsessive child, probably neurodivergent, but still. Like I used to carry that book around everywhere with me wherever I went. And if I wasn't reading something else, I would sit and just refresh my memory of like how Pokemon evolved and what their special skills were. So looking back, I actually never went through the process of having to figure out by myself how a Pokemon evolved, if it was a weird, unusual way. Um, so I'm starting now. I'm 30 years old. I've got to go to work. Like,
Yeah. But I mean,
unfortunately, I have boring shit to do.
uh,
I can't spend all of my free time figuring out how Pokemon evolve for funsies.
mm,
I have bills to pay and other such bullshit.
yeah. I mean, I had the guide back in the day. I don't know if it was the official guide
Yeah,
or not, but I had the guide. Um, but yeah, I'm the same way. It's like, I mean, on the stream that I've been doing occasionally on this channel for Violet, I've had a gimme ghoul, and I was like, oh, this seems like quite cool, like this gold ghost Pokemon. I was like, oh,
yep.
I'll keep this about, see what it evolves into, and then I was like, oh, I had it for like X amount of levels. I was like, how do I get this to evolve? And I googled it, and it was like, you've got to collect like 100 coins. And I was like, I ain't got time for that. Like,
Yeah.
in the box you go.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I was gonna say something and I've forgotten it now. I've
But yeah,
forgotten it already.
but honestly, the things they expect you to do with.
Right. So when I got Pormo, whichever one it is that's the middle one. So that one's in obviously the new game,
Yeah.
Scarlet and Violet. And you get and it's the Pikachu of the generation. It's a little cute mouse that does electric. And it's also fighting. And I originally wasn't going to have it because I got Quaxley, and Quaxley evolves into a water fighting. I didn't want too many fighting types on my team
Mm,
because I don't think fighting is a great type. It's not one of my favorites, one of my go-to
yeah.
Pokemon types to have on my team.
Yeah.
Um, so I caught the Pawmi
Yeah.
and it evolves. So the first evolution evolves just regularly leveling up, and then the second one it has to do a certain number of steps outside its Pokeball.
Yeah.
Now I was walking around with this thing up until it was like level 60, and I'm like, when's this cunt going to evolve? And it's consecutive steps outside of its Pokeball. It's not accumulated steps outside of its Pokeball, right?
Right.
And so I was just running around with this thing, getting it to fight everything on its own without me having any kind of like involvement in the fight,
Mm.
and just me not really doing anything, running around like, when is this thing going to happen? But if you get too far away from it, it zips back into its Pokeball without you telling it to, which
Oh.
reset the counter. And it's like, so how am I supposed to do this in such a way that you are gonna not just jump back into your Pokeball whenever I'm not paying attention? Like, how many steps fucking count?
Mm.
Um, and so I had it out as often as possible. It got up to like level 60 something, and I was like, well, this prick ain't evolving. Maybe I'll just stop it. But at that point, because it was level 60, it was really quite powerful. It had some really good moves, so I was actually using it.
Mm.
And then I was sort of like checking, and I was like, right, so what if I just run round in circles and it doesn't engage with anything? Will it eventually evolve? And that is exactly what happened. I just ran round in circles for like 20 minutes, and then the little cunt evolved. And I was like, I almost don't want this now.
Yeah.
That fuck you.
Yeah. Well.
Like it's more likely to evolve if I'm not playing the game.
Yeah.
Because if I'm engaged with like where I'm going, I'm gonna jump over a ledge or bump into a thing and then it's gonna jump back into its Pokeball. And if I'm just going around in circles, not paying attention, it'll evolve.
Mm. I had a similar thing with Vikavolt, which
Oh yeah.
was a charger bug, and I believe so. I've skipped the uh, uh, the 3DS generation. Like I intend to play it at some point, but like because I just didn't have a 3DS for a long period of time. It just kind of passed me by, and then eventually I was like, well, I'll just get a Switch. Um, but I believe Vikavolt comes in one of the 3DS generations, and it's like you evolve it at like, you know how like Leafeon's, like you've got to like evolve it near a special rock that says oh, it's cool and breezy at this rock. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like similar for Vikavolt, where I think you've got to like get it like near like a power station or whatever. But
Yeah.
in Galar it doesn't have that, so you had to like do this like whatever it was, this kind of like round the houses way of getting it to evolve. And again, by this point I'd like, it was like level 55, and then it evolved into like Vikavolt, and I was like, this is absolutely, it just became my main like that.
Nice.
I don't know if that happened with the Pokemon that you evolved.
Yeah, kind of. But I was already using it pretty consistently. Because I don't know, I don't think I found an electric type that I liked. And I didn't, and also like my Quaquaval didn't have a lot of amazing fighting moves. It had some really good water moves, but not loads of great fighting moves. So I actually quite appreciated Pormo's moveset by the time it fully evolved.
Um, I've
Um,
just googled how you get it to evolve, right? And you know how I built it up as like some bullshit thing that you got to do. You just had to give it a Thunderstone, but
yeah,
but I'm sure you had to get it to do something like worse than that in like the previous game. Yeah, there's like a magnetic field in like one of the other games.
yeah, like how you can get a Glaceon with an Ice Stone now, and that was not how you did it to begin with.
Mm,
Yeah, no, I feel you.
yeah. So should we
But
answer?
basically, we are grateful that Pidgeotto evolves by leveling, is what we've taken half an hour to say.
Yes. God.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Right. I go into each one of these being like, this is going to be 10 minutes, and then we find a way of
Yeah, and then
digressing.
we go off on a million tangents trying to make a really basic, tiny point
Yeah. So you
because
say
of who we are as people.
so you say you think we might both be neurodivergent.
I don't think that's going to surprise anyone, fella.
Right, let's go into the Dex entries.
Let's
So
do
that
it.
that there is so the image. Like I'm looking at that image now and being like, your picture that you did for the competition is like so good. Like it's basically
I feel
the
like
official
I
art.
feel like that's probably the artwork I remembered, and like I kind of just sort of tacked on a an action scene.
You
Like,
tacked
I
on
feel like
a big bear
I
belly.
thought I was remembering it from the show, and then looking at this, I feel like I probably just remember it from the artwork.
Honestly, I was very impressed.
Thank you.
But it definitely needed a bear belly, in my opinion.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, get Ken Sugimori on that. Although to be fair, I feel like he did bigger, chunkier Pokemon than the later
Yeah,
revisions.
he did do, the chunky boys.
Right, here we go. Let's have a look and see what Professor Oak's got for us. Very protective of its sprawling territorial area, this Pokemon will fiercely peck at any intruder. Um,
I mean, that tracks. That tracks with Ash's Pidgeotto going back to protect its friends.
um, it does make me go, really, if this was like, if the Pokemon world was like the real world, you should encounter Pidgeottos on Route 2.
Yeah, and Pidgeots.
Yeah.
Like, and I think they rectified that a little bit in the Let's Go games, where like you can catch um Bulbasaur, Butterfree, and Beedrill in Viridian Forest. And you can catch Pidgeottos really low level as well.
Mm.
In I don't think Route 2, but like quite early on, before you're at Mount Moon,
Mm.
which you don't get in the original games. You didn't see them wild until you're nearly at Fuchsia City. Um, but I think that was a bit more. I think it was trying to be a bit more kind of true to what the real world is like, where you get like the adults with the
Mm.
babies. And so you ended up like catching, I catching like a fully evolved Clefable already in Mount Moon out of Waste of Moonstone. I
Mm.
quite liked that.
Yeah.
From a catching perspective, rather than like a training perspective. I get why they made the choices they chose
Mm.
for the original games, but I did like that they tried it to see how it would go with Let's Go, Eevee and Pikachu.
Yeah. And I think that like, in the newer games, that's the thing that I like. The roaming Pokemon is the thing that I like enjoy the most. Like being
Yeah,
able
me
to
too.
like decide what it is that I want to like catch. I probably wouldn't have come across that like shiny oddish if it weren't under that circumstances. Like for me to be able to go, is that a
Yeah.
shiny oddish, and then actively go, that's what I'm going to go towards. So yeah, so I like all that kind of stuff, and I like the fact that they like you mentioned the Bulbasaur. Like I like the fact that they've kind of made the starters not quite as like
Yeah.
constricted.
Like Bulbasaur has a very low spawn rate, but it's there.
Mm.
What I liked a bit less is that they just give you a Squirtle, a Bulbasaur, and a Charmander. Like they all appear in the wild, but with a low spawn rate. But then there are trainers before the third gym
Mm.
who will just give you a Bulbasaur, a Charmander, and a Squirtle,
Mm.
and it's very easy to do the exact Ash Ketchum team
Yeah.
when that happens because then you've got your starter. And then you've got your Pidgeotto, which evolves via leveling, and you've got
Mm.
the three starters that evolve via leveling,
Mm.
and you've got your Space for your Dratini
Yeah.
when you're ready for your final one that evolves via leveling. Like, you don't have to put a lot of thought into the team to really, really smash that game.
No. No. I mean that's kind of one of the main criticisms against it, isn't it? That it's like it's a tiny
Very
bit too
easy.
easy. But on the
I
flip,
mean, they were trying to do something else. They were trying to experiment with like the catching mechanic,
mm,
which I liked, but because you can't rebattle um trainers,
mm,
literally I stopped playing it because like I ran out of Pokeballs and then didn't have anything else to do.
yeah.
I couldn't level up my Pokemon without more Pokeballs because that's the only thing you can battle, and I couldn't get more money because I didn't have any other trainers to battle.
Oh,
You
so
know?
was that like late on in the game?
Yeah, yeah. This is after the Elite Four, but like I still had like I hadn't seen a Farfetch'd, but
Yeah.
I had no Pokeballs and had no way of getting more Pokeballs.
So can you not re-battle the Elite Four?
I think so, but like I didn't want to. I didn't go. I wanted enough money for some more Pokeballs. I didn't want like Like I ended up going back and going around all the places where like pearls respawn and
Mm.
like getting money that way. But even then, you have to wait for the next day to go by, and I'm like, I'll be fucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pidgeotto's Pokedex entries, the first couple are pretty similar.
Yeah.
Full of vitality, flies around its large territory in search of prey, builds its nest in the center of its large territory, powerful talons to swiftly snatch prey, all pretty standard.
Can I point out that obviously Stadium Professor
Yeah, it's got
probably
to mix it up a little bit.
Stadium Professor probably would agree with my drawing with the powerful talons, catching some prey.
Powerful.
I mean, Stadium Professor, I'm sure that if he had more than one line, he'd have put in also has big tits. Pidgeotto.
Big titty talons. Gold has highlighted its vision, which I guess makes sense if it's flying very high.
Mm? Yeah, and
Um,
that's similar to real life. You know, it's well known that like
yeah,
eagles and stuff have like decent vision.
yeah. Silver goes on, it immobilizes its prey using well-developed claws, so back to its titty
Yeah, there's
talons.
the titties.
Then
Titties.
carries the prey more than 60 miles to its nest. Now
Oh, we
here
get
is where we get our first instance of dick swinging
yeah,
today.
yeah.
But also, I do feel like it kind of ties into what the Pokedex entries that were like, Pidgey has a really good homing instinct. No matter how far away you take it, it always gets back to its nest. And I think that ties in because then you've got Pidgey learning the way back to the nest no matter what, and then Pidgeotto using that skill to feed everyone. I think that's quite.
Mm.
I don't know if they thought that far through or if I'm extrapolating, but I think that works.
I'm just googling what is
Crystal.
60 miles away from like London.
Okay,
Just to
so
see if that's like a big dick swing or not too.
big dick
Play,
swing.
Places around 60 kilometres. That's not what I asked for. What's 60 miles in kilometres? In km. Right, 96 kilometres. Now you know for a fact that if this had been like written by like a European developer, that would have been over 100 kilometers. Right. So 100 km from London. Okay, so let's see if you feel like this is impressive, right? So it's basically said. So if you saw a Pidgey picking up a worm right now,
Yeah.
and someone told you, like Stadium Professor, no, Silver Professor said to you, do you know what, right? Do you know what's even more impressive than its big titties and its big talons? It's carrying
Yeah.
that Caterpie away to Stevenage. Would you be impressed?
I guess. Yeah. Because like I'd get a train to Stevenage. I mean, I wouldn't because I don't really want to go to Stevenage, but like,
What about Seven Oaks, which is also around 60 kilometres away?
yeah.
High Wycombe.
I mean, like, again, actually, I could cycle to High Wycombe, I reckon. That's got a better infrastructure to get there than London to Stevenage, isn't it?
Well, this is good to know. That I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the infrastructure down there is like. But
Yeah.
but that gives you an idea of some of the places where a Pidgeotto could go if you saw it eat a worm in front of you and then carry it off. So we've got here, it slowly flies in a circular pattern, all the while keeping a sharp lookout for prey. I wish...
I think that matches with what Ashes did.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was often used as a lookout,
Yeah.
and it makes
Understood.
sense. Yeah, I think that ties into the show pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Um,
More stuff about vision. Um, right. Keeps on going. But
patrolling its living
yeah.
space. If its territory is violated, it shows no mercy in thoroughly punishing the foe. Again, ties into Ash's one. Um, Fire Red. I don't know if this is something that you had in the back of your mind when you were drawing your Pidgey in
Mm.
its nest. But Fire Red says of Pidgeotto, the claws on its feet are well developed. It can carry prey such as Execute to its nest over 60 miles away, and you drew yours eating an Execute.
Yeah, do you know what?
How? How? Wait, no. How does it have two claws and carries an Execute that's made up of six eggs? They are not attached.
Well, I mean, not to be pedantic, but I've only drawn 4 executes, so presumably it has eaten 2. um, but I mean, is the implication there is that execute there can be like more or less execute than is traditionally depicted?
I guess we'll find out when we get to our Execute
Mm.
episode, won't we? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but now we now know that that is canon, that Pidgeotto eats execute.
Execute.
Like, and
Yeah.
presumably as well, right? That it like smashes open the shell and like it eats the innards, whilst it is just screaming as it's slowly dying,
Yeah.
going, "Please kill me."
So I'm gonna get distracted by Execute if we don't move on, and I want to save some of what I'm sure my initial thoughts will be for the Execute episode. So, protective of its territory, flies over a wide territory, outstanding vision, flies high, renders prey immobile using well-developed claws, then carries it more than 60 miles to its nest. It's in the repetitive bit
Yeah,
now. Wide territory, developed claws, can carry prey such as Execute to its
yeah.
nest over 60 miles away.
They really didn't
Please
like
tell me
execute.
how.
They,
Please tell me how it can pick up 6 eggs that are not connected. Do they like come in their little like egg box?
yeah, maybe they did. There we go.
Maybe.
There's something there we go. If anyone's watching, send us a picture of some execute in an egg
Of
box.
a Pidgeotto at the shop buying a 6 pack of Execute.
And maybe some Miltank milk.
Some moo milk. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah. The rest is all just more of the same. Large territory, patrols its living space. Sharp claws. Sharp claws. All done.
Yeah, I like the fact that they decided that they were like, no, it's execute. Let's put that in multiple times.
Yeah.
It
Like even though it was canon in the anime that it eats cat pee, they were like, no, it goes out of its way. It flies from wherever the fuck it is, all the way to wherever, all to the safari zone where you meet and execute, and it eats the fucking execute out of the safari zone because that's where you get it in the games.
yeah, and presumably it because it keeps on going on about how strong the talons are. Just has it and then eats its as the Pokedex would call them innards.
Yeah. Eats the innards.
The innards.
Eats the eggy innards.
Right. Should we have a look at the old Smogon?
Let's do it.
Right, here we go. So there they are. And they're actually in not frequently... I think that's what it stands for. Not frequently... not fully evolved. So that's in the not fully evolved. I feel like from the looks of things, it's got like decent stats at this point.
Yeah. For a middle evolution, it's gonna be in use,
Yeah.
I think. So it makes sense for it to be fairly well developed. Like we said, it slots very comfortably into a team.
Yeah. And I think because of Fly, there's probably a little chance of this dropping out. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've had teams in the past where I've had 2 flying types on and kind of kept a Pidgeotto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like my little avatar we've got here is a bird keeper because I really like the option of flying types. I think
Mm,
there are lots of good ones. As in our header, my go-to flying partner is a Crobat.
yeah,
But like if I was to have like a flying type gym, even then, if I was to have a gym, it would be flying type.
yeah,
But really, I think it would be like bats
yeah.
because I really like having Gliscor on my team because having a flying ground type is really fucking cool.
Mm,
And also I like Noivern. I think Noivern is a dope Pokemon. So if I were to structure a team based on a type, it would
yeah,
be that because I think flying is a really good secondary type
yeah,
or a really good half of a dual type. But like yeah, as I said before, the reason I steer clear of Pidgeotto and its ilk is because its other half is normal, and I don't like having a normal type on my team. I think they suck.
yeah, yeah. I'm not so keen. Um, but I mean, to echo what you're saying, I really like Noivern. In the trading card game, my Noivern deck is currently unbeaten. Because it is,
Oh,
and you may be pleased to hear it's got a whole bunch of Crobats in there and all. So I very much agree with you that that is a good combination. But yeah,
hmm
I think that the thing that's going against Pidgey is that it is normal flying. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
normal type's not amazing. Uh,
I think having normal as a dual type is pointless. Oh, it's half something fun and then half something that makes it weak to fighting
yeah,
types, but
and
otherwise has no benefit. It's not super effective against anything.
and this might be controversial, but I feel like almost like I almost feel like flying type is almost like it's very close to normal type.
It is very close. It's literally just got some wings. It's normal type with wings.
Yeah, it's
Like, here's the thing, unless it is a bug or a bat or it's poisonous or it catches fire or something like that. Like, you could say of pretty much all flying types, they're also normal.
yeah,
And I think you could go so far as to say everything that doesn't have a dual type could be half normal. I don't understand why you'd make something half normal.
yeah,
Doesn't make sense to me.
yeah. No, I agree, and that's the only thing that I think is holding for me. It's holding this back, but it's like it's odd in that like as I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I would make it pure flying type. I almost feel like that's almost worse. But like because they've gone so far down the route of kind of reality at this point, it's basically a
Yeah,
pigeon. A sparrow is basically a sparrow. Like
yeah.
like I can't think of another type that you would put with the Pidgey line.
Yeah,
Like I mean I don't know if they updated it, but at least with like the sparrow type you could stick like dark in there, because of its.
yeah.
Um,
Sparrow would have been a cool part dark type.
mm, but with the Pidgey line, because of how far down that kind of route that they went down, it's like I don't know what else you do with it,
Hmm.
and to make it a pure flying type almost feels like a waste.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I do like flying types. Like I do like flying. As much as I was like flying types, almost like normal type. They they've got they've got like capability over fighting type, isn't it? Or are they weak
Yeah.
to fighting type?
Flying is strong against fighting. Normal is weak against fighting. So in Gen 1, Pidgey's line being single type because everything was single type had an advantage over fighting types. And then once its dual typing was introduced, that got diminished.
Ah, well,
And that's like the one thing it's good against. That and grass and bug.
yeah.
It's still strong against grass and bug, but now it's less good against fighting.
Well, should we give it our rating?
Let's do our rating.
Which again, I feel like we're gonna be off on. Because I
All
gave
right.
Pidgey a 6, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Pidgeotto a 7.
Okay. I think I did the same thing. I want to give Pidgeotto a 5 because again, I don't think you have Pidgeotto on your team because you want a Pidgeotto. You have Pidgeotto on your team because you want a Pidgeot.
Mm.
You just tolerate it while it's in the middle stage. But I feel like it does get more of a boon than Pidgey because of the role it played in the show. So I feel like there are more positive memories attached to
Mm.
it.
Yeah. And I'm even looking at that animation now, and I'm just a bit like, it does feel a bit underwhelming at this point.
Yeah, well, it ain't fully cooked yet. It's got one more to go.